Hello, welcome to Cafe COA. My name is Conni DiLego. I am lucky enough to be the director at the Council on Aging, or as we like to call it now, the Center for Active Living. You may have noticed the change in our newsletter and in our brochures and such. We're trying to up this a little bit to keep people from admitting that they're old and that wanting to come. And this afternoon I'm here with our newest addition to our staff, and that is Andrue Coombes, and I'm very, very happy to introduce him to you. Andrue comes to us with a wealth of history and background and experience that I'll let him tell us a little bit about. Andrue, would you like to tell a little bit about your background?
Well, I'm 24 years old. I used to be a director of a program here in Plymouth called The Edge, and it was focused on getting alternative ways of addressing various sorts of things like substance abuse and other, I guess, deviant behavior with kids by giving them something to do and encouraging them to, do the things that they want to do. So, I mean, for me, my background is in psychology, but I have a very wide range of interests, I guess, that kind of I want to bring to the table here.
That was very, very impressed. We were very impressed with you during the interview, which is obviously why you're here. One of the things is your keen interest and knowledge of IT and computers and all of that kind of technology that we're not so much involved with at the center. And I know you've been pulled apart every time Andrue walks down the hall. Somebody grabs him. Andrue, I got this one more thing to fix. But before we get into the technology, which is basically what we will be talking about in a minute, you also have a keen interest in music, I believe. Is that true?
Yes, it is. I mean, I've been playing music since I was about in middle school. I taught myself how to play, the guitar, the ukulele, violin, piano, all sorts of things like that. And I make music now, and I make electronic music a bit more. But that's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to do my older program, The Edge, is because I knew that for me, what kept me on the right path and made me feel just, I guess, better about life and more confident in myself was my ability to express myself and do what I want to do. And so that's what I encouraged a lot of younger kids to do. And I feel that's the same thing that you guys are trying to do at the Center for Active Living, which is to encourage people to take control and take advantage of the opportunities in their life, no matter what age they're at, which I think is a very important view to have. So.
I agree with you, and we have several music programs that you know about. We would like to have more, but currently piano and flute and the tin whistle.
Yeah, the tin whistle, yep.
That's great. That's just started with Caitlin came in, a little Irish girl came in and said that she'd like to teach tin whistle. Okay, go ahead. And then she had, when she first started, like a couple of years ago, she had a group of about 7 or 8 people. And she went away to Ireland, and she's back, and that's going to be starting up again. But what's the value so much of music? Why do you think that's so important now? When you were focusing on that in terms of helping kids keep away from drugs or make better decisions and such like that, why do you think music is so important? What does it do for a person?
Well, I feel like it's the same thing with any sort of creative medium, really. It's, a lot of people's main issues, I think, tend to deal with them bottling up stuff and not really being able to come to terms with a lot of the things in their lives. And so, having a creative outlet like art and music and writing and anything like that, it sort of gives you a way to view your own thoughts in a different light and be able to share them and express them when you might not even realize what you're thinking about or what you're trying to do or what you're trying to say. But when you create something, the emotionality and the things behind, you as you go through a creative process, that really is what sheds light on things, that you won't be able to see when you're living in them.
Right. And you're also a writer.
Yes.
Yeah, we know. And you've written for the local paper and such too. That very, very good. And what you're saying is how I feel about theater. The opportunity to be somebody else, to pour my own emotions into another. But that would be a whole other topic we could get off on. Theater and music, which I would love to do, and maybe we will sometime. One of the things I wanted to talk about today, and one of the main reasons that other than introducing Andrue, that I brought him in today, is Andrue is, I won't say an expert, but he certainly knows an awful lot and has done tons and tons of research for us on fraud. and scams, and particularly with the senior population, the elder population. He started a group or a class, and why don't you tell us a little bit about the class that you were holding at the Council on Aging and what sort of evolved from it?
Okay. So, I mean, I guess I can start by saying that, being a social worker, I get to directly interact with, the elder population in the community. And, I saw it a little bit before with my own family, but when I see people they want to get on the internet, they want to, read books and watch movies and connect with their friends and do things like that, I realize that they're diving into something that is a bit more than they might expect, or it's a lot more than they might expect.
On the computer,
and so on the
when they
computer,
get
yeah. And so, just seeing a lot of the ways that people are interacting and doing things online and trying to use a computer and tablet and smartphone and things like that, I see a lot of people just get lost in that because they don't know who to ask, and it's difficult sometimes because a lot of the times people don't want to take the time to explain things. They'd rather just do them for their grandparents or whomever. But I mean, it's the same thing. It's valuable to teach somebody something, a skill. So the first series of classes I did were more about internet safety, because I see a lot of elders especially starting to utilize social media as a platform to share about their lives, reconnect with old friends.
You mean like Facebook or Twitter, things like that?
Facebook is a huge one, because I mean it's social platforms and things that we lose friends, we disconnect with people, we don't see people for years, and I've heard stories of people reconnecting with somebody that they haven't seen for 30 years on the internet, and you just think about the value of being able to communicate and find somebody. But the other side of that is that information goes out there into the public, and a lot of times people just don't understand the implications of a lot of the things that they do online. And so it was really important to me to try to address that in the most simple terms possible, because I know that the big wide world of the internet and computers in general, and even just using a phone sometimes, it can be just such a nightmare for people, and that learning curve, I guess, is what prevents people from utilizing the services that exist to the fullest, and also ensuring their own safety. So I did a 4-part series on online safety, which then evolved into some more discussions and people kind of being able to come to me and ask questions, because it is difficult to find the right people to explain something to you. And then I ended up doing a presentation on phone fraud, which is one of the biggest things, because people who don't use a computer, never touched a computer, they still rely on their landline phone.
Right.
And communication services are so advanced now that it's something that people have to really just think about and try to learn as much as they can about, so that they do know what is out there and what's going on in the world.
But certainly your landline must be safe. I mean, I know with your cell phone you've got excuse me, internet and all that, but your landline, how dangerous can that be?
Well, one of the things that I've seen constantly, I mean, we know about this with just stories that we hear from people at the center, is getting tons and tons of spam phone calls,
IRS.
the IRS scam, all sorts of just random stuff that a lot of people would say this is garbage. Like, they hang up the phone. But some people, especially if they are living alone, or they're just more trusting of the people who are calling them on the phone, like they have been for their whole lives.
Well, let me just stop you on that. Why do you think, 2 questions. Do you think the senior population is a little bit more vulnerable than, let's say, anybody under 50 or 60? Or, and if so, why?
Well, I think that it's definitely the trust issue is a huge thing, because it's not even a trust issue, it's the fact that they do trust people.
That's it.
And so, back in the old days when people would call somebody on the phone, you knew where they were, you could tell who they were, you could speak with them and talk to them, and there was copper wires that were connecting you and this other person.
I used to click 3 times and get the operated.
Yep. Yeah. And you call up an operator and ask for a person by name,
Right.
And we've because of the advances in that, we've lost a lot of that, I guess, connection with the technologies that we're using. And so a lot of people get lost in that because nobody explains it to them, and also they might just not want to accept, I guess, the changes that are happening. So I feel like the senior population in general is more vulnerable because they're trusting, but also they are unaware of these changes that have happened, and people who are, you know, basically just criminals. It's not hackers or anything like that. It's just people who want to take advantage of somebody. They exploit that. They exploit the unfamiliarity and the trusting, and the fact that, you know, elderly people are more willing to, you know, give something to somebody and do something that somebody else tells them.
Well, let's get back to the phone then again. The basic thing before we get into the cell phones and computers and things, with this whole issue of trust. How is it that my phone number, all I have is a landline, and all I do is call my family or so on and so forth, or, you know, the bank might call me or whatever. How can that cause any kind of problem? How would they get my phone number, for instance, if I don't write it down somewhere?
Well, there's a lot of ways that people are doing this now, and it's actually kind of scary how it's evolved into what it has. Because, you know, previously there was things like the do not call list, and there was you know, unlisted phone numbers, and, you know, all you really had to look up something was a phone book, you know, or dialing every single number on your rotary phone at a time, which, you know, with 10,000 numbers in an exchange, it would take a lot of time and effort and numb fingers to be able to go through and try to scam each and every person that came through. So what happens nowadays is that a lot of our data, or a lot of our information about us, you know, even if we haven't used the internet before, a lot of information about us is still online, you know, with background checks and public records and, you know, just town information, just general info about you is all on the internet. And a lot of the times people use like programs to, I guess, troll through all that data and pick out people that they want to target. And it started out with marketing leads and finding information about people, which is understandable, but it slowly devolved into like almost like a wasteland of
sophisticated crime.
Data. Yeah, because I mean, we have a lot of data everywhere, and people nowadays just share way too much. But even the people who don't use a computer and just have a landline phone and are just used to the things that they've always done, I mean, whether somebody finds data about them and tries to target them, or they have auto dialers. Yeah,
that's what you were telling me about one time. What's that?
Well, an auto dialer is they use them a lot of the times in like illegal telemarketing. It is illegal to call every number in an exchange.
It's legal?
It is. It's like a gray area for certain types of business purposes, but I mean, with the do not call list and the things that have to be adhered to by the FCC, you know, it's calling every single number in, say, 508-746 is, you know, they're not supposed to do that. So, but what a lot of people do nowadays is, you know, they have a computer that can call, and they can, you know, let's say they start with 508-746-0000, and they dial sequentially down all the way to 9999, and they'll have a computer program that'll listen out for the first few seconds of audio, and those things will tell them, you know, whether or not it's out of service, or it's busy, or it's a fax machine.
So they call my number, and they would get that kind of information.
Yeah, and that's just the general setting the stage for it, because then if they hear a couple of rings and they know that that's at least a number that's connected to something, and so then they do another sweep. And so when sometimes people get calls and it rings once, that's what it is that they're basically testing out every number, and then process of elimination going down and seeing, all right, is this a business or is this a person? And people do that for both marketing as well as to just collect data on people, because then that information about which numbers are valid and who's connected to who, and, you know, what do they sound like, and are they a male or female?
Wow.
Is it a, you know, whatever, that information is very valuable to people who want to use it. And so those, just the advances in computer software and telephone technology, you know, it enables people to do things like that were never possible before, but it also opens the door to just, I guess, getting all of our information about who we are and how we communicate, it opens that to people who might not have the best intentions.
Pretty unscrupulous. And we'll move on to the computer, but a couple of the scams that we want to really remind you of and advise you of would be the IRS. Please, if the IRS is not going to call you, they're not going to call you. So if you get a call or you see it on your call waiting there, it's not the IRS. Do not answer. If you do answer, you will get threatened. They will tell you that you owe money. And one poor lady, a 75-year-old woman that I know, they told her that she owed thousands of dollars, and she argued with them, pleaded with them, I'm a widow, I can't afford that and stuff. Well, we're sending the police to your house right now. They actually said that. The poor woman was so frightened, she ran across the street and hid in a neighbor's house. That's terrifying. You know, that's very abusive. So IRS will not call you, number one. The grandmother ploy, you know, Grandma, I'm in Canada, or I'm in Puerto Rico or somewhere, and I got into trouble and I need $3,500 to get out of trouble. And then don't tell Dad and Mom, because I don't want them to know. We've had people be taken by that. So please, if your grandkid calls and asks for money, tell them you're going to check with their dad first or something, but just don't give your number to anybody over the phone. And nobody's going to ask you for your Social Security number. Nobody, not even your bank. Right, and there's another thing you told me about with banks, how does that work, where they can have you believe you're talking to your bank?
Well, it's actually something that I demonstrated at one of the classes that I did. There's a lot of different ways that they do it, but it's similar to what is known online as phishing, and that is making you believe that you are talking to a trusted entity by doing everything they can to fake it. And it's easy to do with especially with websites and phone numbers, because it's not transparent as to, you don't know who exactly you're talking to, you don't know where anything's going. And so a lot of the times I've seen people get phone calls or text messages or emails saying that there is a critical alert on their bank and they need to call and they need to confirm all their account details because their account's been locked because of fraud. And so people seeing that, it heightens their sense of anxiety, and they want to get it fixed. So they'll call, and without even thinking or looking anything up, they'll call and talk to people that they think is their bank. And the thing that I demonstrated was what's known as a man-in-the-middle attack, which is where you call an 800 number that I had set up, and the person called me back and I said, hi, we've found like fraud on your account, and this is an alert from your bank. Can you please confirm your bank? And the person's like, oh yeah, Bank of America. And then said, one moment please. And I put them on hold, and I looked up I had a list of all of the bank's customer service numbers, and then I just 3-way called Bank of America's customer service line, to which the first question they ask is, can you please state your account number? Oh. So people do things that are...
So you let go, you the culprit, let go, you're listening in while the person is, I'm talking to the bank now, that I thought I was talking to right at the beginning.
That's one of the ways
because
to do it.
banks always put you on hold and somebody
Yep. And so the thing is that they try to establish that trust, and they try to, people that are doing scams like this, they really try to make it seem like they're part of that system that kind of really is impersonal. And so they want to fake it and make you feel like you just need to get this done, and it's you're wasting their time, and that sort of I guess like exploit. That sort of like exploiting, trying to exploit seniors, like it's kind of sickening, really. It's like frustrating, because I see this and I see people falling for things that are, they're, to me, I would just want to like shake them and say like, why would you ever do that? But then I realize that it's because nobody has ever told them, and they just being exposed to that is critical for them to be able to understand.
And we can go on forever just with the phone, but I wanted to get in a little bit to computers and cell phones and some of the fraud and scam that happened with that.
Well, I mean, there's so much of it out there now that it's difficult to really hone in on one thing. But I mean, with people that are just getting on the, people are just getting on the internet who aren't familiar with how things go, it puts them at risk for a lot of really simple things that get, like, I feel like the simplest little tricks and exploits and things are really what hurt people the most. It's not like the sophisticated like cyber weapons that are really affecting the everyday American. It's a lot of little tiny trip ups. One of the things that we see a lot with emails is this, similar to that man in the middle sort of thing called phishing, which you get an email saying, say, like your credit card statement is messed up, or your eBay account was canceled, or your Amazon package needs to be delivered, and then they provide you a link to go to a website, and the website, let's say it's Amazon, is like amazon.com like some random website name .ru.biz, like it just goes on, and because people see, Amazon in a link, they might think, oh, well, this is it. And then they go on the website and it looks exactly like it.
They'll even have the logo in your email. The logo will be there. There'll be something off on it, but like you said, the email might be off a little bit.
And sometimes they might even do what's called spoofing and fake the email that they might send it, and it might look like it's actually from, say, customer support at Amazon or something, and they might even take a customer support email and just copy and paste it to you and replace the link. I mean, there's a lot of different things that people can do.
But the thing with when you get those kind of emails, if it doesn't say your name, right?
That's a really big red flag.
Then don't even open it. Don't even open it, because any bank, Amazon, anybody that's contacting you will not say dear customer or dear client or anything else like that. They will use your name. So if you get one of those, don't even open it, because when you open it, then what happens? Now you're open to.
There's a lot of different things that can happen. I mean, there's risks of viruses and tracking and all sorts of different stuff. But one of the things that I've always said to people is that if you ever get an email or anything that you're unsure of, just do your own stuff to call the company or the business that you're dealing with, because I mean, they're obviously going to know. So I mean, I've gotten emails before saying that I need to re-log into my Facebook or change my password because there's an account and I'm like breached and I'm locked out. And then I go to facebook.com on my web browser, and without clicking on the link that they sent me, and I realize that everything's okay and it's fake.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's some very convincing stuff. I mean, even for me being, having grown up on the internet, I still get tricked by certain things a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not a bad thing if you kind of just understand that you had made a mistake and you can move on. But it's certainly pretty wild out there for somebody who's never seen anything like that before.
Yeah. I think I have a motto that I use, and especially if I'm shopping. When in doubt, don't.
Yep.
When in doubt, don't. I don't care what it is you're doing, whether it's I want to buy that dress or not. I can't mind it. I want to buy that house. No, whatever. When in doubt, don't. And that's the same thing. If you have an email that you don't know, you don't recognize, you're questioning it, don't. If it's real, they'll get back to you. Somehow they'll contact you. But if you have any kind of doubt, just leave it alone.
It is really important too to keep keep track of who you're doing business with online, because if you don't know, let's say you get an email from a bank, but it's not even a bank that you use. Some people get random. It's just like cold reading, and they think like, oh, did I write a check to this bank, or this insurance company or whatever? And the same thing with those advanced fee scams, like you've got a $10,000 settlement or something. People, they think like they don't think that they
it might be something you used one time. Like the Amazon itself has come out. Apple.
Yeah.
IBM, that goes back a while. But Apple might say, remember the one about he's going to give out a free Apple to everybody that contacts you within the next 25 minutes
That's a huge thing, especially on Facebook and social media.
Right.
Share this post, and get, win an iPad,
something
or
free,
somebody is giving you this, or, you will be eligible to do such and such. But, I mean, those things propagate over and over again, and people see all their friends doing it, and then that is what builds the trust. It's like a hollow sort of level of trusting other people.
So when you do that, we're going to have to wrap this up pretty soon. When you do that, by sharing, now your name is out there. People can click on your name and get your information, and that's one of the ways it just spreads. You said to me before, and I think it's a great an image to remember, is when you're looking at your computer screen, see the globe. just see the world, because that's whatever you put out there is out there for the world. It doesn't matter if you're from Plymouth or you're from Hinsdale or you're from Poughkeepsie. It's out there, and it's available to anybody that wants to continue to research, and there are people that are very savvy and just take your name and fly with it.
One of the things that I did actually at the very first lecture that I did about online safety was I did a Facebook search on Facebook for the exact phrase, "my new phone number is."
Oh.
And you search that and you can see everybody's public post of everybody who says,
Wow.
"Hey, I got a new cell phone, my new number is," and
Oh,
then
boy.
you can just get these people's phone numbers. Or there's the other thing where people are like, "I lost my phone, I need contacts," and they'll make like a status about that that's public, and everybody posts their phone numbers of
Oh,
all their
boy.
friends, and there's a lot
It's
of
crazy.
oversharing out
Yeah,
there.
we have to wrap it up. I wanted to ask you some more. It just goes by so fast, doesn't it? Leave us with something. Leave the seniors and the public with something positive in terms of, because it's frightening. It's
certainly
frightening, and
is.
we are vulnerable to everything. What is a way or two that we can be safe?
Well, I think that there's never really going to be any safety on the internet or on the computer, but I really feel that people just have to think about it like driving a car. Like, you wouldn't just get into a car the first time without observing somebody else driving a car and reading about it and trying to learn and experience as much and not asking for help. You kind of have to treat it as a completely new experience instead of something that is, easy to use because everybody else is using it. Just because there's millions of cars on the road doesn't mean that everybody knows
Right.
how to drive. But the other thing is to really be critical about where you're putting your information and who you're giving your information to. Because what it comes down to with the data breaches and all that stuff, identity theft, a lot of it comes down to people just trusting other people with their information and other people taking information without getting any sort of questioning about
Right.
how they're going to deal with it. Because there's so much data out there that everybody collects that all over the place.
Right.
And if you start to ask, what are you going to do with my information? Are you going to sell it? Are you going to, encrypt it? Are you going to do whatever? If people aren't asking those critical questions, then the people who are managing it are never going to really think twice about what they're actually doing.
Right. Okay, so I'm getting the circle that says wind it up. So as Geronimo would say, just be mindful of where you're putting it. It is a world out there, and watch it. Well, thank you, Andrew. Of
course.
And we'll probably have to do this again because there's more. I didn't even get into asking you about do you like working at the Senior Center?
I do.
Senior
I really
Center,
do.
the Center for Active Living.
Center for Active Living, I love it very much, and I
Oh.
think that it's an awesome opportunity for me to be able to learn a lot from people as well as teach people things that I know as well.
Well, we love having you there, and you're a big help
Awesome.
to all of us. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you got some information. If you have more questions, you can always call us at the center, 508-830-4230, and we'll try to answer whatever questions you have. I also want to remind you we have a march coming up on June 23rd. It's a march against abuse. This is a nationwide thing that's going on, and we're going to do our part down on the waterfront on June 23rd. Please join us. Thank you very much, and have a great day.